Hi, so we'll continue for chapter 2. Still in the services that the operating system provides. Particularly, we have touchscreen devices. Today on most of your Android app and also on some laptops that we see today. Uh, of course, most operating system has its own type of graphical user interface. Macintosh has their own, Linux have their own, and Windows have their own graphical interface, right? So most of this graphical system interface would would go onto the OS level through what we call a system call. Now, typically, system calls are written in a language, a high-level language in C or C++, and it allows direct communication with the operating system, right? There are few common ones are Win32 API, commonly used for Windows. On Linux we have, or Linux and Unix we have POSIX API, and that's being used, and Java has their own Java API. Right? Basically, system calls allows you to do certain things that relate to the operating system with the hardware layer, particularly, for example, accessing file systems, etc. So let me give you an overview of the system call here. Again, please refer to the slides when watching the video. Uh, you have a user application, and when you are accessing a file, when we call, most programmers would call file open or open as an API library that's being provided. This is to allow you to move from a user application on user mode to something called kernel mode that relates to the operating system and accessing lower level devices. So, so all user programs basically does not have access to the operating system. All of this is done through a layer by passing parameters that would call to make system calls to access the operating system functions. Now, there are several types of system calls. We have process control, right? This does everything that relates to the particular process. We'll go more into process later. Uh, we have file management, device management, information maintenance, communications, and protection. All of this relates to particularly system calls, right? So here are a few examples of system calls. You might not see this on most programming that you're familiar with, but some of you might when you do programming. For example, in file management, you have done this before to open, to read a file, or to write or close a file. If you are dealing with communications, you'll be dealing with this kind of libraries in Unix system and this kind of libraries in Windows systems. So these are, you just bear in mind when you do programming and you see some kind of system calls like this, then you are actually accessing the layers of the operating system. Uh, for example, the standard C library, when displaying information on the screen, actually move from a user mode on the program itself, and when you print F or C out, you'll go to a standard C library, and the standard C library would go onto the kernel mode and make a system call to write stuff onto the screen. Right? So it's the same for most programming language. Programming it's the same for most operating systems, whether it's Arduino, FreeBSD, uh, um, uh, operating systems. Right? So okay, so we'll take a break here and probably continue later on system services.